Good evening. Welcome to Sunday at 7. I'm so glad you're here. This is our relaxed Sunday space. It's a chance to wind down the weekend, share stories, and enjoy good company. Each week, we'll share stories, reflections, and plenty of friendly conversation, all in a relaxed Sunday atmosphere. Pop a hello in the chat, grab yourself a brew and settle in. I will love hearing your thoughts as we go along. Let's get started with this week's Sunday at 7. Hi, good evening, welcome. God, I sound like David Frost. Hi, Kels, Noxie, Sharon, hi, good evening. Just been caught off guard, I wasn't quite ready. So, what I'm going to be going on with tonight, I think, is, well, first of all, I presume everybody can hear me. So if just somebody give a thumbs up that you can hear me. Yeah. So are we getting oh, well, you must be able to hear me, or somebody would have said, I can't hear you, what you're saying. So what I'm going to be, I can hear you. Thank you, Kels. What I'm going to be going on with is my first couple of weeks at the Army School of Catering after that horrendous first day that I told you about. And Sharon, I haven't been up to a great deal, darling. I'm on a case study. I'm finding my next brother's father. So that's what I'm on this week with. Anyway, going back to my 1966 episode, September time at the Army School of Catering. So the first week started off basically like going to school for the first time. And, probably you don't remember your first time at school, but I can remember my first time at school. But I had another first time at school when I joined up. So, of course, we were all up at the crack of dawn on that Monday morning and got dressed best of our abilities because we looked like ragamuffins, basically. And I think the parade was 6:30 in the morning. So we had the parade, the 6:30 parade. And, you had your sergeant major or whatever walking up and down the lines telling you, but get your bloody hair cut and you look a scruffy little shit. All those type of things, put you in your place, basically. Not beef you up to knock you down before they pick you up. Anyway, so we had the parade, half an hour or so, marched down, went and got the breakfast. You had 3/4 of an hour to get your breakfast, and away we go. So the first morning, about 8:30ish, we were marched up to this big block on the other side of the camp where we were billeted, and big sign saying education block. Oh wow, we're going to school. So in we go, and it was just like the hall. Yeah, I don't know if your schools had a hall. My first school, Burlington School in Brid, had a big hall where you all attended first thing before you filed off to your different little classrooms. Well, this was the same thing. So we're all told to get into our, I don't know what you call it, rooms, So we had 10 to a room, and you had to, each room had a table, and you had to sit at that table. And then the guy got up at the front and said, right, first day is we're going to go through a few things and tell you what you're going to be doing for the next term. Now, I don't think he used the word term, but that's what it was, the first session, first 13 weeks anyway. So he walked down the middle of the line, and he on each table, he placed a little booklet type thing. And he said to the first lad on each row, pass one of these down to each of your roommates. And we all got this little booklet, basically. And it was a little booklet that told you what you were going to be expected to do while you were at, your first term of your army career. And of course, like all kids, because that's all we are, 15, 16-year-old kids, we just open up the book. And the first page was your rota, if you can call it a rota. It was done in like lessons, but they were 1 hour, they were 2-hour slots in each day. So Monday mornings, you knew you were up at silly o'clock on parade, and then you went to your first lesson. And I can remember my first lesson was English. And the second lesson was, and it wasn't chemistry. It was to do with catering, stuff about food and that type of things. Which that was Monday morning. That's what you were doing every Monday morning. First lesson, English. Second lesson, not economics, but it's more of the chemistry of food, basically. Go for lunch, and then after lunch you would parade again, get shouted at, and then you'd go on your second lessons, your afternoon lessons. And the afternoon lessons were different every day. So I think on my first lesson on my first full week we were going to be going to was PE, my favourite, physical education. Hated the bloody thing. I was as skinny as a rake, had no meat on me. I didn't have any muscles, and knack all. Well, none of us did. We were all just scratchy little kids. Anyway, so that was a couple of hours in the afternoon. You would do that. And then it was the second part on the afternoon. It was I don't know if you can call it fieldcraft, but probably not the right word. It was more, you were. I don't really know how to explain what that one was, but it was, you were taught basically how to look after yourself, because you haven't got a mother now. And, the sergeant major who shouted at us the week before and said, I'm your mother now. Well, he don't come and do your washing and ironing and all that kind of gear. So never picked an iron up in my life. Never had to do, I was going to say household chores, but I did have household chores, but not the way they do them. So, and then Tuesday was a similar thing. You would have a different lesson in the morning, and in the afternoon you would do how to march, or you had a full week of every day was 2 lessons in the morning, 2 lessons in an afternoon. Some afternoons the 2 lessons rolled into one, and I remember the first Wednesday afternoon we had the lesson. I can't remember what the lesson was called, but what we had to do, we had to go to the swimming baths, which was about 2 miles away from where we were. And of course, you don't get buses and wagons and all that kind of gear. You marched. So we were there. I would say there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There'd have been eight rooms of guys. So that'd been 80 guys, maybe 100 guys, marching down a couple of miles to the swimming pool. We thought, we're going to go swimming. There's a good thing. At least I can swim. I don't know about everybody else, but I could swim. And anyway, we get to the swimming baths, and the sergeant says, "Right, I want everybody in the changing room, and you're going to change into your second uniform." They called it a second uniform. I don't know why. It was a bit shit than the first one. It was more, like if you were going gardening or something like that, you'd put on rubbish clothes. Well, your second kit was that, basically. And I thought we were going swimming. Anyway, we weren't going swimming. So you had to go get this green kit on, and the socks and the hobnail boots. Wow, here we go. Anyway, so, messing about and getting ready and laughing at each other and playing about and fighting about and whatever. You get shouted at, get in the swimming pool area and line up. And of course, nobody wants to line up first. You want to try to get to the end, but somebody had to go first. It wasn't me, but somebody had to go first. And what they did was this corporal stood at the end of the pool, and he said, "Right, what you're going to do is you're going to jump in this pool at this end, and you're going to tread water for 5 minutes. And then you're going to dive down and retrieve this brick." And he had a house brick in his hand. And he says, once you've retrieved the brick, you've got to come back up. Then you've got to tread water again for 5 minutes. Then you can come out, put your brick out, and get out the pool. Wow. Can't be that hard, can it? Yeah, well, it was. So the first guy goes up and he throws this bloody brick right into the middle of the pool, and he pushes the guy into the water. He says, "Right, tread water for 5 minutes," and he's there with his watch, and we're all shouting and screaming and whatever. And the first guy did quite well, actually. Tread water really well. He dived down, picked his brick up, come back up, tread a bit more, come back to the side, pass the brick up, got out the pool. And the corporal said, "Yeah, you've passed." Anyway, off we pop, one at a time, doing this bloody thing. And it comes to me, cocky Paul. "Oh, I can swim." Yeah, not with fucking hobnail boots on, I can't. And jumps in the pool. Well, talk about panic stations. Anyway, I calmed down and I managed to tread the water, and then I had to go down, deep dive down for the brick. Well, I dived down, I couldn't see the fucking brick. Anyway, I found it in the end. Come back up, coughing and spluttering, and he's shouting at me and saying, "What, stupid boy, what are you doing?" And tread water for another 5 minutes. Tread water for 5 minutes. Right, out you come. Brick out, climbed out, and he said, "You passed." I said, "Oh, I passed. At least I passed somewhere." I think I passed a bloody, I don't know what I passed really, but I passed this bloody swimming test thing that they do. A 10-minute swimming test in your green army uniform, which weighed about 3.5 tons when it's full of bloody water. And of course, you've got your boots are on and you're skidding all over because the bloody hobnail boots. Anyway, it took all afternoon. We were in there all afternoon. And a few passed, a few failed. 1 or 2 had to do it again. Those who failed got 2 more attempts. And if they failed on the 3rd attempt, they would be marked in the book as a failure, basically. And all these things, what you're doing, all go against you at the end of the term. A bit like a teacher's thing at the end of the term. So all these things you're doing go to you. So then that finished, and he said, "Right, everybody outside, form up in threes." And we had to march back, soaking wet. And we didn't go straight back to our rooms. We were taken to the dining room. Go and get your dinners or your teas or whatever. I can't remember what they called it. I called it dinner, but some kids called it tea. And so we get there and everybody's bloody laughing at you because they know where you've been, because we're all dripping with water and we all look like fish out the thing, basically. So we get fed and right, everybody outside, form up, and we march back to the rooms and said, "Right, tonight the time's your own. Do what you want." So of course, right, oh great, lovely. Well, when they tell you can do what you want, they don't really mean that. You can't do what you want. So anyway, we all got our washing gear and went down to the shower block, and we were all having showers, and a couple have had baths and whatever. And back to the block, to our rooms. And of course, because it said you can do what you want, telly went on. Wasn't a very good telly, mind you, but I think it was about a telly from 1922 or something, because, a little shitty thing that didn't work. Well, didn't work to a fashion. We got it working in the end because we used a metal coat hanger as an aerial. So that gave us the picture. Anyway, we hadn't been in the room for half an hour, and the corporal came in and says, right, lads, what I'm going to show you now is how to do your boots. Oh, well, that's a bit pointless, and how to do my boots. I've just fucking had them on all day. Anyway, he said, so I want you here, sat on the end of your bed with your boots in your hand, and I want you to have a spoon and your boot polish. And the boot polish you had to use Cherry Blossom. Black boot polish, Cherry Blossom. Couldn't use anything else. It had to be Cherry Blossom. So we're all of us in the room, all sat at the end of our beds with our boots in our thing, and we've all got a spoon. And he said, right, Smith and Smith, come down here, get the candles out of the back there. Fucking hell, what we're going to be doing with candles here? Is it some kind of ritual we're going to be going through? Anyway, went and got the candles, and he said, what I want you to do is I want you to light the candles and sit at your end of your bed with your candle lit. And from there, with my candle lit, we've all got a candle, by the way. We've got enough candles for all of us. So we're all sat there, boots, spoon, candle. And he said, right, what I want you to do is I want you to put the spoon over the candle. And I want you to get the spoon hot. Oh, okay. So, of course, bloody metal thing. And you could feel the handle getting hotter and hotter. But anyway, he said, right, now what I want you to do is put the spoon into your cherry blossom and just get some on your spoon. Okay. So we got some on the spoon. He said, right, now you've got that. What I want you to do is, I don't know if anybody knows about army boots, but they've got a piece at the front that looks like looks like it's a different piece of boot, if you know what I mean. It's been sewn on a different way. But it was still pimply like the rest of your boot. They're all pimply. So I said, right, I want you to tip that cherry blossom onto the toe cap of your boot. Oh, okay, so we tipped the cherry blossom on the toe cap. So he said, right, now put your candle back in, get it burning. Because, of course, it had the EMS, evening, darling. Just telling him about me first day. So spoon in the candle, and he said, right, once your spoon is red hot, what I want you to do is put it on your boot and rub it on the toe cap where you put that polish. Rub it with some force. Don't be messing about. You're not going to knack it up. You're not going to break it. Do it. And he said, and I want you to do that for an hour. Okay. Anyway, so we're there. Spoon red hot onto the boot, all over the toe cap. And up he buggers off and then comes back about 50 minutes later. And he says, right, candles out. Sounds like you're a bloody nun. Candles out. And spoons down. Show me your boots. So, of course, he come along and he looked at the boots. He said, oh, you've done quite good there. Next one, yeah, not bad. Went round us all. We'd all done decently. And he said, right, that's your first lesson on your boots. Your second lesson will be the same tomorrow night. You'll do exactly the same thing. And you'll do it for 3 nights. Every night, as soon as you've had your dinner and you've done your ablutions or whatever you want to do, that's what you're doing. Boots. And yeah, okay. So once he'd gone, we're all there looking at each other's boots, and some looked good and some looked a bit crap. But what you were looking for was, when you first started your boot, the toe cap at the front, which is about 4 inch, like that, and it's about 4 inch. And when it first started, they were all pimply leather, and it was pimpled leather, black pimpled leather. And then once you'd been rubbing it with this red hot spoon and burnt cherry blossom, you'd got rid of the pimples. Or you nearly got rid of, you were well on the way to getting rid of all these pimples, and you would have a flat toe cap. And so, of course, as the days went on, the 3 days went on, and and on the third night, he came in and he says, right, let's have a look at your boots. So, and we all got a thumbs up, or whatever you want to call it. And he said, right, let's go on to the second lesson. Oh, okay. Second lesson. So I said, what I want you to, for this lesson, I want you to get 2 dusters out of your locker, and I want you to sit there with your boots, and you want your polish, your cherry blossom at the end there. And he said, what you do, and I don't know if I can show you. No, I can't, because I haven't got a fucking duster, you dacky. I've got something here. What's that? We'll pretend that this is a duster. It isn't, but we'll pretend it. And he said, what you do is you get your duster like that, and then you turn it like that. So you've got a duster on one finger, you've got a boot on your knee, and you've got a tin of black cherry blossom. He said, what you do is you dip this into that tin, and you get the polishing on the end of there. Oh, God, we're all there, got polish. Some got great big lumps, some got a little bit. Well, you're there. He said, now what you do, you've heard the term spit and polish, I presume. I'm going to show you how to do it. So he said, yeah, I hope you've got some spit because you're going to be needing it. So what you do is spit onto the toe cap of your boot. Yeah, okay. So spit on the toe cap. He says, and what you do is you get this, and if that's your toe cap, you go like that, and you just make little circles all around. And once your polish is gone, you dip it in again, spit again, and start again. And of course, you're doing that for an hour. Spit, polish, spit, polish for a bloody hour. He says, right, we're going to be doing this for the next 3 nights till the weekend, and then we'll see how you've got on. So, you can put it all away, put away your stuff tidily. Don't just chuck it in your lockers. I'll be checking your lockers in the morning. So anyway, you have to fold your bloody things up and put them all in the locker and whatever. And anyway, over the 3 nights left, or 2 nights left, or whatever it was, spit on it, dip it. That's it. Yeah. Do you know, I've been told that loads of times before. Just spit on it, but that's a different tale. So anyway, by the end of the week, he'd come round and he was looking at our boots, and you know, I was quite impressed because it had started to shine, and I thought, wow, you know, and I don't know if it's pride or you know, because I'd done something right and it was working right and whatever. And he said, right, that's your, whenever you've got some free time on an evening that you're not doing out, if you're having your chat with your buddy next bed or whatever, always have your boot with you, with your polish and with your duster, and keep doing your boots, because in a month's time I want to be able to hold your boot and look at the toe cap and be able to see my reflection in your boot. If I can't see my reflection in your boot, I'll smash it up and you'll start again. Wow, no pressure then. Anyway, so that was an ongoing thing for the next month. Now, needless to say, it didn't last a month, because I was doing that for the whole 3 years I was at the catering college. Because, you didn't just have your boots and polish them and whatever. You had to wear them next day. So, of course, they got bloody dirty or scuffed or whatever. And you had to start, getting it back. So I did that for 3 years. I can honestly say in 3 years, my boots look bloody cracking. I don't know if you've seen all these area soldiers with the funny hats on parade on the Sovereign's birthday parade, and they've all got really shiny boots. Well, that's what ours looked like. Exactly the same. The difference is, of course, they had 2 pairs of boots. Did the Coldstream Guards and those type of people. They had 2 pairs of boots, 1 ceremonial pair and 1 working pair. So, of course, they never got the boots, the ceremonial boots, scuffed or whatever. So, of course, theirs always looked fantastic. Whereas ours were our everyday boots. So they had to look good, and then you had to make them look good again for the next day. So you always, every night, you knew you had to clean your boots. And I can tell you sometimes they were in a hell of a state before you could bloody start spitting and polishing and all that kind of shit. Because later on we were doing stuff out in the field, or, muddy, wet, snowy, all the conditions. So spent half your life doing these boots. But saying that, again, over a period, you learn shortcuts. You can learn shortcuts from the people, from older ones who've done it for 2 years. They know how to work around stuff and all that kind of things. Anyway, so that's the boots, and you only got 1 pair of boots. You didn't get 2. That was it. 1 pair of boots. And the only time you didn't have your boots on was when you was at PE, and you had your what do you call them? Plimsolls, black, ugly plimsolls. But that's the only time you didn't wear your boots. You never wore your silly shoes at any point, because they were always in your case, out the way. That was another life. Your other life was in a case. So that's the boots sorted. And like I say, that lasted 3 years. Boots. So that was like a first lesson. And then, of course, in between those lessons, and especially weekends, because we didn't have lessons at weekends. We didn't have weekends to ourselves, but you didn't have to go to, PE or swimming pool or whatever, or whatever. You didn't have all that, but weekends we had lessons, what you could call it, household lessons, I presume you can call them, really, because what they did was they would show you how to iron a shirt and iron your clothes and all that kind of stuff, and of course learn how to darn your socks, because you only got, I think we got 3 pairs of woolen socks. And of course, they're going to wear out, and you can't just go and change. I want another new pair of socks. You can't do that. You've got to mend them, and of course, to mend them, you've got to be able to. I've just said the word, and I can't remember what it was, but you've got darn a sock, or if if a button came off your shirt, you would have to sew the button back on. So you're learning all these little skills that are going to carry you through your life. And quite honestly, they've come in really useful because I can, well, I don't have to now, but I can sew. I can't knit, but I can sew. I can darn socks if I need to. Don't need to nowadays. You just chuck them in the bin and get another pair out. Put a button on, all those type of things. And of course, your sewing kit. We had a little cloth sewing kit, and it was like that, a sewing kit, and then you'd open it up, and inside your sewing kit would be needles, threads, all the type of stuff. No thimbles, stuff like that, but everything else. And that was called a housewife. So the army term for your the army term for your sewing kit was a housewife. I can see where they got the name from, but I can't imagine that they'd use that now. They probably don't get issued one nowadays. You have to buy all your own bloody kit nowadays. But like I say, back in the day, we didn't have to buy any kit. We were given everything. 2 of everything, sometimes 3 of stuff, So your underpants and stuff like that, it was 3 of. I think there were 4 pair of socks, 2 shirts, what do you call them? Not t-shirts, sweatshirts. Well, I don't know what you call them. The shirt that goes under your shirt. Can't think of the word. Anyway, so you've got all that kind of gear. So the first 13 weeks, basically, not once in those 13 weeks had I seen any cook's whites, white stuff and blue trousers and all. Never saw any of those first 13 weeks. You were getting geared up to be a soldier. And so, of course, the first 13 weeks, we went to school, did English, did chemistry. I don't think we did maths, but it might have been a kind of maths, because you had to know what weights were, how many ounces in a pound, how many pounds in a stone, all those type of things. So you had to know what things were, because when you get to the catering college side, of course you got to know, if somebody says you want a quarter of an ounce of this, you've got to know what a fucking quarter of an ounce is, don't you? You can't just, oh yeah, it's that. Anyway, so that's jumping ahead a long way. So the first 13 weeks basically is getting you used to army life. Now, Thursday, last lesson on a Thursdays was, I forgot what you call it. Used to call them Dobie Wallers when I was in Singapore. But you changed your sheets, and we didn't have to wash the sheets and pillowcases. You took them up to, where would you check them? It's a place where they wash your bloody stuff anyway. So you take up your kit to them and you hand over your your 2 white sheets, your 2 pillowcases, and they'll hand you 2 clean ones for you to take back. And then, of course, it was you also had to take up any washing you'd got. You know, your shirts would need washing, or what. Your shirts, your underpants, your socks, you know, they all need doing. And they would do them. But you would take them in, and then the next day you would go back and pick them up. You didn't get new ones. Laundry, that's the word, Clary, thank you. You didn't get new ones. You got what you took in the day before. So if you took in a towel, 2 pairs of shreddies and 2 pairs of socks or whatever, you always got them back the next day. I don't know how they worked out who was who, because we never had bloody names in the shit, but you always seem to get the same gear back. Anyway, so that was the laundry. So, of course, you got your laundry, then you went back with your laundry and you had to iron the bugger. So that's where your training had come into, how to iron and whatever. Iron your sheets, iron your shirts, iron your socks. You had to iron everything. And then once you'd, on a Thursday afternoon, once you'd been in and handed in your laundry as such, and picked up your clean sheets, pillowcases, you take them back to the block, and then you would have to go to the pay office, and you had to march to the pay office. And after a period of a few weeks, everybody knew where they were in the line, you know. So first week, you were just first in the line or last in the line or whatever. After 2 or 3 weeks, you all knew he needed to be first, and he needs to be second, and he needs to be third to go in to the pay office. And you would go into the pay office, you'd march in, stamp your foot, do your salute, and it's the pay officer would say, Smith, 615. We wouldn't say Smith 615. Private, Junior Private Smith, 615. And there was a term he used, and I can't remember what the term was, but you had to put your hand out for your money. And of course, you got to remember that first time I went, none of us been paid before. We'd all had a postal order sent to us before we came, you know, for the day we were bringing in, but we hadn't been actually paid cash as such. And so you put your hand out, and in your hand goes a 10-shilling note. And you'd look at it, right? Thank you, sir. And he would say, right, Smith, that's 10 shillings received, and can't remember exactly how much it was, but we'll say £5 into your post office savings account, because everybody had a POSB. You were all set up with a POSB when you joined up. So you get 10 shillings in your hand and £5 into the post office savings bank. You had no control over that post office savings bank. You never saw that book. You never saw it until the end of the term. Then you saw it. But so you get your 10 bob, you think, oh, 10 shilling, I've got 10 bob. But in those days, 10 bob, you know, I'd never had 10 shillings for a week to spend on myself. Little did I realise that the 10 bob wasn't to spend on yourself. So it would be a case of, right, form up outside in 3 ranks, and we're all out. We've all got our 10 bobs in our pocket, And he says, right, we're going down to the nappy. Now, I don't know if people know what nappy is. Nappy is like a shop, and you can get copies. And if you were old enough, you could get beer, but we couldn't get beer because we weren't old enough. But it was a shop, basically. And he said, right, you go into this, into the nappy, and what you do is you go into the shop and you get 2 tins of cherry blossom black polish, 2 dusters, and 2 bootlaces. And bootlaces weren't bootlaces, they were strips of leather. So you had to get 2 each of those. Then you had to buy a pack of razor blades. I think they were Wilkinson razor blades, but you had to buy a pack. And I thought, well, what the fuck am I buying a pack of razor blades for? I haven't had a shave in my life. What's that all about? But you had to buy the bloody razor blades. So you ended up, you go in, you buy what you've been told to buy, and you hand over your 10 bob and you get half a crown back or something. I don't know how much it was. Wasn't a lot of money you got back. It was enough to buy yourself 20 cigarettes and a box of matches, and maybe a couple of sweeties. I can't remember, but I wasn't a sweetie kid anyway. Cigs were good, but so that was your first payday, and that's what you did with your first money for the payday. And you did that every Thursday. Whether you needed 2 tins of bloody polish, you did it. But over a period of time, you learn the tricks of the trade, basically. So what you would do later on when you've learned all these little things, you know that you're not going to be using 2 tins of polish in a week. You know it. You're going to be ending up with a tin not opened. So the tin that's not opened would be in your locker, and it never moves. So your locker is always tidy, and all the other stuff went in your suitcase, your other life suitcase, all that went in there. And then if you started, after 3 or 4 months or whatever, or 6 months or whatever, if you started getting a lot of stuff in your suitcase, like laces and tins of polish, razor blades, all those type of things, you learned later on that you could on a Friday night or a Saturday night, you could go down to the nappy, and the guy in the nappy shop would buy back the tins and the bootlaces. He'd buy them back. You didn't get back what you paid for them, but you got some. You might get a packet of cigs or whatever. So you learned how to get rid of the crap you didn't need. But you didn't learn at the beginning. So, of course, after a month or 2 months, I've got huggins of bloody razor blades. What the fuck is that all about? I'd never shaved. But then, of course, you had to shave. Whether you needed to shave, you had to shave. So you had to be taught how to shave, because I'd never shaved. And it was, it wasn't an electric thing around, like it was hot water, soap and whatever. And you can probably tell that I'm not the best for shaving. I fucking hate shaving. Worst thing ever invented, but we had to do it. So, that's basically what happened in the first week, and it rolled over into the first term. Basically, you were doing the same things over and over and over again, you would square bashing, you know, learning how to march in numbers and how to about turn and how to stop, how to salute. You know, you didn't salute like that, you saluted like that, you know. Occasionally I saluted like that, but only when they weren't watching. So yeah, it was, you were basically being taught how to be a soldier. And, you know, we learned, I'm trying to remember what the gun was we were given. We first started off, when we first started, the first rifle I was given was a Lee Enfield 303, which was from the Second World War. It was a Lee Enfield 303, and it was a bolt action, you know, so you pull back the bolt, put the bullet in, push the bolt forward and fire. And that was our first rifles we started with. So, of course, you had to learn how to carry a rifle, how to change shoulders, how to salute, and all, you know, all that army shit, basically. But yeah, it's learning all these things. And the way the army teach you to do things is they do things by numbers. You know, so like teach you how to salute properly. You know, the sergeant would shout, I don't know what the command is to salute, but we'll just say the sergeant would stand there and say, salute the officer. And you'd go 1, 2, 3, 1. And that's how you saluted. That's how you learned it was 1, 2, 3, 1. Same as when you were marching. If you had to do an about turn while you were marching, it was 1. Let me just think. It was 1, right, 2, right, 3, left, forward. And you did that every time. And you had to shout it every time. You know, you didn't do it in your head. You had to shout the bloody thing every time. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1. And 1, right, 2, right, 3, left, forward, bump. So that's how you got taught to do different things, you know, repetition. And, you know, they all say about repetition, don't you? If you're knocking nails in all day, in the end, you don't have to be looking at the nail, do you? You know how to knock a fucking nail in without bashing your hand, because it's muscle memory. Your muscles remember how to do it. And it's the same with how to march, scratch your ass, poke your ear, or whatever. All done by numbers. But, you know, the number thing didn't last for 3 years. Once you'd mastered it, a couple of terms, it got easier, you know, because you'd learned how to do it, and you'd learned how to march uniformly and how to do it, you know, as a troop or as a squad or whatever. So that's the army way of learning, by numbers. And then, so that's basically a week, you know, washing, ironing, sewing, doing your boots, dusting. You had to keep your room clean, so you had to dust everything, and of course it was wooden floors, no carpets. It was all wooden floors, and you could see your bloody face in the shine of the wood, and you would have to. I think twice a week you would have to put this bloody thin polish on, and you'd get a thing called a bumper, and the bumper was like a heavy. It was like, what do you call them big bricks? You know, you make house house bricks, but the big ones. It was like one of those, but it had like a cushion on the bottom, and it had a big long pole, and you would bumper this floor. So of course everybody was shouting at each other, watch what you're doing on that bloody floor, because I only bumpered it last night, and blah blah blah. So all bullshit. Everything's bullshit. And of course, when the officers came round for you, and I can't remember whether it was a Monday morning or a Friday morning, but we had an inspection once a week where you had to stand at the end of your bed, properly dressed, shiny boots on, hair combed if you had any hair, berry on, and locker open. And he'd come along, and if he didn't like the look of your locker, he'd throw it all out. Didn't always do it, but and then he'd be there with one white glove on. What the fucking hell's he doing with the white glove? And what he would walk round, and wherever there's a flat thing, he would run his finger along, and then he'd look at it, and if it had bloody dust on it, you got bollocked. So you knew where to make sure you were dusting properly, and all those type of things. Again, we would take it in turns at doing the ablutions, doing the toilets and sinks that we had in the block. The baths and the showers in the other block was done by civilians, basically. We didn't have to clean those, but you had to clean your own toilets and sinks and things like that. So what was inside the block was your responsibility. What's outside the block is somebody else's responsibility. But you still, you had to use it properly. You couldn't just go and piss all over the wall or whatever. Anyway, so that is, in a nutshell, basically a week pushed into, 3 months pushed into a week. Because over the 3 months, I'll tell you a few things next week that were different than the first couple of weeks. Because, of course, we had to learn how to take a gun apart, clean it, put it back together, and fire it. All those type of things. So we'll get back next week to that. So I'm going to be finishing now because I've talked for an hour, and I'm quite impressed that I've spoken so much about nothing. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. I know we haven't had a lot in, but who cares? You're hearing tales you might not have heard before, but you might have heard it from your parents or grandparents. Not everybody's old like me. So I'll be back again next week, 7 o'clock, same place, same channel, same me, same pub. Not changing pub. I like this one. I think it's really nice. I enjoy sitting in here. That fire just burns me back. Anyway, thanks for coming. And it's live long and prosper. TTFN. And see you all next week. That's all for this week's Sunday at 7. Thank you so much for spending part of your Sunday evening with me. I really enjoy sharing these stories and chats with you, and I hope you'll join me next Sunday at 7 for more conversation and good company. If you've enjoyed tonight's stream, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with any ideas or feedback. I'd love to hear from you. And if you'd like to catch up on previous episodes, you'll find them all in the Sunday at 7 playlist. Have a great week ahead, and I'll see you next Sunday.